Hi everyone, this is Tanya from Flying Dog Studio. Thank you so much for joining me as I continue with Miss Barker's Sycamore Fairy. In our first video, I did the background, and in this one, we're going to continue with the rest of the piece. I have two brushes I will be using, the size 6 round from Winsor Newton and the size 8 from Royal and Langnickel's Zen series. I have a microfiber cloth and 1 cup of water for this one. And then I have my Winsor Newton paints, which is what I'm kind of obsessed with right now. That is just a little swatching of the colors, so I'll know what's in each well there. And I also have this. This is a list of the colors I will be using, so you can kind of freeze that screen if you want to take a look. And if you would like for me to do a swatching video to show you the greens and the blues and the different shades that I use, I will do that for you, and I'll make some little swatching cards. Just let me know down below and I will get that up soon. And if you are new, welcome to the channel. And if you've watched my videos before, thank you for hopping back on and taking a look at what I'm up to. And what I am up to right now is mixing colors. You will see on the screen that I have all of the colors listed as I put them together in the palette. And the top part of this palette, I started with sap green, and I had 3 little areas of sap green, and I added the different yellows in and the blues because I wanted you to see if you have that base of sap green. And a lot of people don't like sap green. They'll say, stay away from sap green. Make your own greens. I use sap green to make my own greens. So, and I use blues and yellows as well, as you can see in the bottom part of the palette. But I do like sap green. I think it makes some really great greens. Now you will notice on the left side of the screen, it says ant. I don't know why, but lately, every time I start filming, these ants just magically appear on my table. My desk is nowhere near the kitchen, so there's no food. The only thing I ever bring in here is tea or perhaps some coffee, and there's nothing on my desk to eat. So I really don't know why they show up occasionally, but you will see our little friends again. No ants were harmed in the making of this video. I tried to just shoo them off so that they will go and do their own thing. But at the end, I had to stop the video and just clear them off my desk. So there were a few that might have been hurt on that one. What we are doing now that the ants are cleared away is I am getting a nice layer of undercolor on all of these leaves. So I kind of lied to you in the last video. I didn't mean to lie, but I kind of lied to you in the last video because I was going to do all of this and finish this in this video. We were just going to do one video to finish this guy. So background was going to be in the first video, and if you haven't caught that, I will link that down below for you. And then I want to show you something before I go on. There's a spot here, and then there is a spot right there that I forgot to put blue in. And if you've watched the first video, I said that all of this kind of blends in together and it's hard to see some of the background areas, and I missed one, but we'll get that fixed in a minute. Right now I'm going to keep adding on these layers underneath, and this was a longer process, as I was saying, a longer process than what I thought it was going to be in the last video. I thought, well, you know, the background took a bit, and I wanted to show you that separately so that you could concentrate just on the background, and then we would move to the foreground. But the foreground took longer than I thought it would, and it is the fault of the kind of tree that it is, because in the lower right hand corner you have all of those little, we call them helicopters where I'm from. I don't know what you call them in where you live and you're part of the US or if you're in another country, but the little seed things on those, when they come down from the tree, they look like little helicopters, and so we call them helicopters. You know, our maple trees look like that, and I guess the sycamore trees look like that as well. So those little helicopters took me a while, and some of these areas were a little larger than I anticipated. That's why I'm using the size 8 round from the Royal and Langnickel series, because it holds more water than my size 6. Sorry about that. A little break in the audio there. I'm not even going to try to edit that out. I had to get a drink of water because I needed a little more water as well as my brush. So I am using that size 8 round because it holds more water than the size 6 from Winsor and Newton, and they each have their purpose. That's why I like to keep both of them handy. And so what I'm doing now is I'm getting a good base layer on everything, and I'm working wet on dry. So I'm needing quite a bit of water in my brush. I could put water in these areas and then drop my color in, but what that does is it kind of dilutes your color. I would rather control my color by adding more water to my brush and then putting it on the paper than to wet my paper. But sometimes we need to wet the whole paper and we need a nice large wash on things. And it might have been helpful on this leaf because this was kind of a large area, but I decided to keep going. That's why I picked up the 8. I knew this was going to be big, and I just went ahead and filled it in and keep adding water and moving it around, because this leaf, I didn't want it too dark because we're going to come back in the next video and add all of the details. So in this video, you're going to see all of the foreground painted, even our little fairy sitting there, except for his hair. And if you watch my other fairy video, you know that, or videos, I should say, you know that I like to save that hair for last because the skin lays under the hair, and so we want to save that for last. Now I'm switching over. This is some cadmium-free red, and I have picked up the size 6 round because these are a smaller area and I didn't want to get this too dark. I am going to come back and add more color on top, but my opinion has always been it's better to add more later than to add too much up front and then have to try to correct that. You can always add more on top, and that's the wonderful thing about watercolor. You can layer it, it's transparent. You add the same color on top later and it just makes it a little more prominent. So that's what I'm going to be doing here, just going back and forth. And you'll notice by my hand, it kind of went underneath my hand on the right hand side, but there's another little ant coming up. And so I'll let you know on the screen. There it is, another one. Yep, that was him. So I pinched him off and put him to the side, but I did not kill him. Probably I should just start killing them, and maybe that's what I need to do. I don't know. We do have a little dog that runs around the house, and I hate to put any kind of little traps out because he'll get in everything. He's so nosy. He's a little rat terrier, and he's just really nosy. So I have to kind of be careful what I do. But I'm going to be quiet now, and I don't think we have any more ants in this video, but we do have more painting. So I'm going to let you watch me work, and I'm going to hop back on in a few minutes and talk a little bit more. Hopping back on to talk about these little stems that he is setting on. They're not really branches, I would call them little stems. They are multicolored. So I put the green on bottom and now I'm starting with the red. And remember, this is wet on dry, but my brush does have quite a bit of water in it. So those are going to run together. And I'm just coming back with a clean brush and kind of pulling that out in the center, because when I looked at my reference photo, there was green on the bottom and then it went to almost a white in the middle and then it went to the red. And you'll notice as I'm moving down the stem, I'm using a little bit darker green. That's because there's a shadow there. So I'm dipping into those greens that have a little more blues in them, and then I'm doing the same thing here, getting a brush that is clean. I've wiped it off and then it just pulls some of that red right off the paper. Now, these are the little culprits for making my video so long. I could have just put down a light yellow-green base on these, but I wanted to go ahead and drop in those colors, much like I did with Beatrix Potter, if you watch that series, where she would put color down and then put another color next to it or on top of it and let those colors blend together. I'm probably going to come back in the next layer and do a little bit more of this, but I wanted to go ahead and get it started on here. And when it dries, if it's still bright enough, we may only come back and do a little dark touch-ups where the little stems on these go back in the distance and there's a shadow under it. So that's kind of what I'm planning on this part. But I wanted to go ahead and drop this in and get all of this started just in case. And you'll notice I'm picking up that yellow. I do have a yellow green, but I'm dipping into my yellow on the palette and I'm putting that on top so I can get a little bit brighter green on there. You'll also see that I've painted outside of the line and I'm coming back in. This is a clean, barely damp brush. And unfortunately, this kind of happens to me often. I have fibromyalgia and arthritis, and whenever I've done something strenuous with my arms, whether wash the car or something else that I'm really involved with, or in this case my neck has been going into spasms, then it causes my hands to get shaky. But I'm a person that's determined. If I'm wanting to paint, that is not going to stop me. I will just simply adapt to whatever mistakes are made. And I'm not going to come back and put any blue on that to cover it up. And I'm not going to use the scrubber brush on it because I don't want to lift the blue. I don't want to have to touch it up. Since it's so light, we're just going to leave it that way. And we don't want the background any darker. That is as dark as I want to make it. And if you watch the first part, I even said I made it a little bit brighter than what she did. So I'm not going to mess with it. We're just gonna say this is part of the learning experience and not gonna worry about that. So if you are out there working with some sort of disability, don't let little mistakes bother you. Just do what makes you happy and keep creating. So that's what I do, and that's my advice to anyone. What I really love about Miss Barker's painting is the color palette. And one of you commented about the color palette. You really like the color palette. And I said, I wish I could take credit for that, but I can't. This is just something I've picked up from her, and I'm trying to reproduce that on here. But she matched the wings up beautifully with those little seed pods, and the colors and the way that she placed them, they're just absolutely perfect. My daughter came in today and she said, I really like the colors on this. She said it's a very, and I can't remember the name she called the palette, but she said, I really like this palette color. And I said, yes, I think that's one thing that has drawn me to Miss Barker's work is her color palette. I really love the colors. I mentioned it at the beginning of the video, and I'm going to talk about it again now, and that is the skin color. Normally what I like to do, and what I will do on the hair, is save the hair for last, because I've said in previous videos, I don't like to do the dark areas and then come back in and put the light skin color, because you can bleed some of that into your skin color and you don't want to do that. So you want to go ahead and get the skin just the way you want it before you start putting the dark colors down beside it. However, in this piece, his legs and the shadows on them are a little bit darker, and they match up with the tone on his little pants. So I wasn't concerned about doing that, because I'm going to use some of the same colors to make his skin tone. So if it bleeds over in there, that's okay. And I'm going to come in, and you're going to see me do that in just a minute, and get the skin tone almost as dark as what I needed on those little legs. And the arms, I wasn't concerned, because that's kind of a lighter green. But his hair, I did not want to do the hair, because there are some darker colors in there, and there's some lighter highlights on his forehead. So I didn't want to bring that down into his skin tone. So I'm going to go ahead and just get a base on here for his arms, and there's a little bit of shadow I'm going to put here and there on his face and his arms, but we're going to do the bulk of it in the finishing of this video. And I really should say, in the final video in this series. So you're going to see, the main base colors put down here on his legs, and he is a little bit darker than the fairy I did before this one. Same colors that I'm using to get the skin tones, and I have those up on the screen. Same colors, just a little bit different combination. I'm using a little more red in it than what I used for the yellow, and when I use this again and I come back on top, because it's going to dry slightly as I move around, you'll see that it will go ahead and put that, here we go, put a little bit of that shadow on there. And it's the same color. I'm just simply adding another layer on top. Again, the beauty of watercolor. I have just a few more little touch-ups to do for this first layer on his skin, and then this little guy is finished. If you made it all the way to the end, thank you so much. I appreciate your joining me. I'm always happy when you guys show up. If you have any questions, please put those down below. If you have any comments or suggestions, I would love to hear those too. And if someone asks a question and I haven't answered it, and you can, go ahead and answer that, because I like for us to be a community that learns together. I will be having the conclusion of this in the next video, so hang in there with me. I'm sorry, I wanted to make this one final video and get it all in, but it just didn't work out. So until then, my friends, I will see you in the next one.